The galaxy was ancient. Countless stars had burned and died before humanity even learned how to light fire. Alien civilizations had existed for so long that they saw themselves as eternal, unshakable, and destined to rule the stars forever. Their empires stretched across spiral arms, connected by fleets of silver ships and guarded by councils of wisdom. They had seen many younger races rise and fall, but none had ever grown strong enough to change the order of things. And so, when the name Earth first appeared in their records, it was nothing more than a footnote. A blue planet on the edge of a quiet system, a species of primates who had only just discovered faster-than-light travel, stumbling into the vast stage of galactic society. To the elder races, humans were curious, even amusing. But they were not important. The great empires had seen this pattern before. Young species often appeared hungry for knowledge and glory, but they burned out quickly or were absorbed into the older systems. The Galactic Council, made of the most powerful civilizations, whispered the same words they had repeated for thousands of years. They are resourceful but harmless. Yet, something strange began to happen. The first the whispers were small. A trade ship passed near the Sol system and returned with stories of human settlements on barren moons. Moons where even seasoned colonists from advanced species would have struggled to survive. The traders laughed when they told the tale, how humans built homes inside frozen rock and made gardens bloom under artificial suns. Soon, more rumors followed. Explorers claimed humans were moving into regions that others had long abandoned, places filled with radiation, storms, or gravity so strong it bent metal ships. Where alien colonies had failed, humans somehow thrived. They were not supposed to adapt so quickly, yet they did. On distant outposts, alien workers shared stories in hushed voices. A human miner could work twice as long without rest. A human medic could keep patients alive with almost nothing. A human pilot could improvise solutions when the best computers had already failed. Slowly, a reputation began to form. Humans were not stronger, not smarter, but different. They were stubborn. They refused to give up. The Council's doubt, the Galactic Council finally called a meeting to discuss the matter. In a vast chamber floating above a star, leaders of ancient empires gathered. They spread like fire, said one voice, deep and resonant. It belonged to a Zalar ambassador, whose insect-like species had ruled 1,000 worlds. Give them one planet and they will take 3 more. They cannot be contained. Another alien, scaled and tall, shook his head. Nonsense. They are young. They will stumble soon. They are bold, but boldness without wisdom is suicide. A third voice, calm and steady, added, let them expand in their small corner. They are still bound by their limited minds. No human ship has ever stood against a true galactic fleet. When they try, they will learn their place. The Council agreed, or at least pretended to. To them, humans were just another rising race like many before. None had ever broken the balance of the galaxy, and humans would not be the first. But outside the chamber, in the cold silence of space, something new was happening. The hidden fleet and alien scout ship traveled through an uncharted sector. Its captain, a veteran of many campaigns, expected nothing more than empty rocks and dead suns. But then the ship's sensors caught a strange signal. At first he thought it was static. Then he saw them. Ships, not just 1 or 2, but dozens, maybe hundreds. They moved in silence without the usual beacons or broadcasts that galactic fleets used. Their designs were sharp, functional, and unlike anything the captain had seen before. They were human ships, but not the fragile, clumsy vessels he expected. These were fast, armored, and armed with weapons the scouts' computers could not fully identify. The captain stared in disbelief. Humanity was not supposed to have such a fleet. By galactic standards, they should have needed centuries to build even a fraction of it. Yet here it was, gliding through space like a hidden current beneath calm waters. Before he could report back, the human fleet vanished into the void, using routes no alien had mapped. The scout captain returned shaken, carrying a message the Council did not want to hear. Humans were preparing for something. A quiet strength, back on Earth, humanity was restless. History had taught them a hard lesson: never depend on the mercy of others. For centuries, humans had faced wars, disasters, and crises, yet every time they had endured. Now looking at the vast galaxy, they understood the same rule applied. They could not trust the elder powers to guide them kindly. They could not risk being treated as lesser beings. So they prepared. In underground factories and orbital stations, human engineers worked day and night. They studied alien wrecks, copied technologies, and improved them in unexpected ways. They learned faster than anyone believed possible, building ships that were not the biggest or the most beautiful, but the most flexible. Where other species relied on rigid traditions, humans thrived on creativity. Their secret was not in their weapons, nor in their ships. It was in their minds. First contact with doubt. The first sign of trouble came when a galactic patrol encountered a human transport near a forbidden zone. The aliens ordered the humans to turn back. Instead, the human captain smiled and replied, "We already mapped it." When the aliens threatened force, the human ship slipped past them using a maneuver so bold and reckless that no alien commander would have attempted it. By the time the patrol reacted, the humans were gone, leaving only confusion behind. Reports like this grew more common. Human explorers appeared where they were not expected. Human colonies rose in places thought uninhabitable. Human fleets moved with silence and precision. The older civilizations began to feel something they had not known in ages: unease, the whisper of change across alien worlds. Ordinary people began to talk. Farmers on distant moons whispered that humans offered help when the empires ignored them. Merchants admired how humans kept their word, even when it cost them profit. Soldiers told tales of human courage, of men and women who faced storms, fires, and void without fear. Something was changing. Humanity was no longer just a young race. They were becoming an idea, a story, a symbol of strength in unexpected places. The Galactic Council still denied it. "They are resourceful," they repeated, "but harmless." Yet deep in their hearts, some of them began to wonder, what if we are wrong? The closing scene of Part 1 on a distant asteroid station, a group of alien miners gathered around a screen. They watched a recording of a human colony on a storm-racked world, where lightning fell every hour and winds could tear steel apart. The camera showed humans walking calmly, repairing equipment, and laughing as if the chaos around them was nothing more than a challenge. One of the miners whispered, "They do not break." The others said nothing. They all knew the truth now, though none dared to say it aloud. Humanity was rising. Quietly, stubbornly, and unstoppable. And the galaxy, whether it wanted to or not, was about to change forever. The galaxy could ignore whispers, but it could not ignore results. What began as rumors about human strength was now becoming fact. Reports from traders, explorers, and even soldiers of great empires carried one repeating theme: humans succeeded where others failed. Still, the Galactic Council chose arrogance. In their view, humans were clever, yes, but cleverness was common among young races. Cleverness without control was only noise in the vastness of space. But as months turned into years, the Council started to notice something disturbing. Humanity was not just surviving. It was advancing with shocking speed. The curiosity of the scholars among the elder races, there were scientists who valued truth more than politics. One of them, Scholar Vera of the Telnari, studied the human records. She was known for her calm logic and refusal to follow blind pride. "What makes them grow so fast?" she asked in the Council's library. "We measure advancement in centuries, but they leap forward in decades." Her peers laughed. "They steal. They imitate. They cannot create anything original." But Vera did not agree. When she visited a human colony, she saw with her own eyes how they worked. Human children played with machines, asking questions with endless curiosity. Human workers adjusted tools with small improvements, making them more efficient than the originals. Human leaders discussed openly, sharing ideas rather than guarding them as secrets. She wrote in her report, "The strength of humanity lies not in their technology, but in their will to change. They are builders who learn by failing, and they do not fear failure." The Council dismissed her words, calling them exaggerated, yet the truth was already spreading beyond their control. The philosophy of endurance won human commander, Captain Elias Ward, became well known among nearby colonies. He was not famous for great victories or massive fleets, but for his speeches. When alien settlers asked why humans risked so much, he answered simply, "Every barrier is temporary. Every challenge can be solved. We endure, we learn, and we grow stronger." Those words spread far beyond his small colony. They became a saying among traders and workers. Every barrier is temporary. To some, it sounded like hope. To others, it sounded like a warning. Doubt in the Council inside the great chamber of the Galactic Council. Arguments grew louder. They advanced too quickly, warned a Zaylor general, his insectoid arms clattering against the table. Already they test weapons that rival our own. If we allow this, soon they will threaten us directly. A scaled ambassador from the Dravari hissed in reply. Nonsense. They lack discipline. Let them expand. When they overreach, they will collapse under their own ambition. Scholar Vera stood and spoke with calm clarity. You misunderstand. Humans are not like others. They do not collapse when pushed too far, they adapt. If you try to corner them, you will only make them stronger. Her words were ignored once again. Pride ruled the council more than wisdom. They decided humans would remain observed but unchallenged. But events outside the chamber soon proved otherwise. A call for aid on the edge of the Zaylor Empire. A colony faced disaster. Its life support systems failed after a solar flare, and the ruling empire gave no assistance considering the outpost too minor to save. Thousands were left gasping for air and water. It was a human ship that arrived first, a small freighter, barely armed yet filled with engineers and supplies. The humans repaired the systems, shared their food, and stayed until the colony was stable again. The alien colonists were shocked. Why would you help us? We are not your people, they asked. The human leader answered, because if we were in your place, we would want someone to help us. The story spread like wildfire. For generations, many colonies had been ignored by their rulers, but humans, the so-called primitive species, offered aid without demand. This act of kindness became more dangerous to the empires than any weapon. Hearts and loyalties began to shift, the hidden progress. Meanwhile, in secret shipyards orbiting dead stars, humanity's fleet grew stronger. Unlike the massive and slow armadas of the elder races, human ships were built with adaptability in mind. A single vessel could be reconfigured for war, trade, or exploration within days. Their designs were simple but effective, their crews trained to improvise when machines failed. Engineers often joked, "Give a human duct tape, a wrench, and a half-broken engine, and he will still reach the stars." It was not far from the truth. Every ship carried not just weapons but ideas. Humans believed that battles were not won by firepower alone but by creativity. They simulated countless scenarios, preparing for problems the enemy did not even consider. The first act of defiance, it was inevitable that tension would rise. When the Galactic Council ordered humans to abandon a newly built colony in a restricted system, humanity faced its first great choice. The colony was young, filled with families and workers who had sacrificed everything to build a new home. Abandoning it meant leaving them to die. Obeying meant survival. Defying meant war. The human response was simple. They refused. A message was sent from Earth to the Council. We will not abandon our people. We will not bow to rules that were written to keep us weak. We claim the right to stand where we choose. The council chamber erupted in outrage. To refuse an order was unheard of. No young race had ever dared such defiance, but humanity had spoken and the galaxy could no longer ignore them. The shifting loyalties other species watched closely. Some were oppressed by their rulers, forced to pay endless tribute. Others were ignored, left to fend for themselves in harsh worlds. To them, humanity's refusal was not arrogance, it was courage. Quietly, whispers began to spread in markets and taverns. The humans stand for themselves. Perhaps they will stand for us too. It was only the beginning of something larger, though few yet understood it. Uneasy warnings. In a meeting on Earth, human leaders gathered to discuss their path. General Arya Holt, known for her sharp mind, warned, "We cannot underestimate them. They believe we are reckless children. Let us keep it that way. Let them laugh while we prepare." Her strategy was clear. Grow in silence, strike only when needed, and let arrogance blind the elders. Humanity's strength was not in being the largest, but in being the most underestimated. Across the stars, secret alliances began to form. Human traders offered fair deals to alien worlds. Human scientists shared medicine freely. Human diplomats spoke of cooperation rather than domination. Slowly, carefully, they built a network of friends. The closing scene of Part 2. One night on a quiet colony moon, a group of alien farmers looked at the sky. Above them, a human freighter passed by, its engines glowing like a star. One farmer spoke softly, When the storms came, it was not our rulers who saved us. It was them, another nodded. Perhaps the old powers are not as strong as they seem. Perhaps the future belongs to the humans. And far away in the hidden shipyards of Earth, another fleet was completed. Not the biggest, not the most beautiful, but ready. Always ready. The galaxy had not yet realized it, but the first stone had been thrown. The wall of ancient powers had begun to crack, and behind those cracks humanity was waiting. The galaxy had laughed at humanity once. That laughter was now fading, replaced by unease. The defiance of Earth in refusing the Galactic Council's order had shaken the old order. The humans had not only kept their forbidden colony, but continued to expand quietly, as if no one had the right to stop them. At first, the elder races thought this was arrogance. Soon they realized it was something else. Confidence. Shadows in the void. The first test came when a Dravari patrol fleet moved to blockade a human trade route. The Dravari were proud and powerful, known for their towering warships that could flatten smaller fleets. Their commanders expected the humans to back down. Instead, the humans did something no one expected. They did not meet force with force. Instead, their smaller, faster ships disappeared into asteroid fields, dust clouds, and gravity shadows. Every time the Dravari thought they had cornered the humans slipped away, striking supply lines, disabling communication relays, and vanishing again. One Dravari officer, furious at the humiliation, wrote in his report, "It is like fighting the wind. They strike, they fade, and they leave us bleeding without ever showing their full strength." The council dismissed it as exaggeration, but soon, more reports followed. The siege of Heron 3 on a small frontier world called Heron 3, a human colony came under attack by a united alien force. The attackers wanted to prove to the galaxy that humans could be broken if pressed hard enough. They sent a siege fleet to surround the planet, cutting off food, water, and power. By every calculation, the humans should have surrendered within weeks. But months passed and Heron 3 still stood. The reason was not superior weapons. It was human resilience. Farmers grew crops inside sealed domes. Engineers recycled every drop of water. Children learned in caves by the light of handmade lamps. Soldiers rotated shifts endlessly, refusing to give up their posts. When enemy forces finally landed, expecting to find desperate civilians, they found a community still alive, still working, still defiant. The siege had not broken them, it had hardened them. An alien commander whispered in disbelief, "How do they endure?" The answer spread quickly. Humans endure because giving up is not in their nature. The turning point Heron 3 became a legend. Across the galaxy, the story was told and retold, of a colony that should have fallen but instead stood tall against impossible odds. For many oppressed species, it was the first spark of hope they had felt in centuries. In taverns and marketplaces, people began to whisper, "If humans can resist, perhaps we can too." The Galactic Council grew nervous. This was no longer about one species. It was about the order of the galaxy itself. A new kind of fleet. Meanwhile, humanity's fleets were changing. The old races relied on massive battleships, towering monuments of power that moved slowly and demanded enormous resources. Humans, however, built smaller, more flexible ships. A single human destroyer could switch roles in hours. Scout today, gunship tomorrow, carrier the next. Their crews were trained not just to follow orders but to think, to adapt, to improvise. In battle simulations, humans often surprised even their own commanders by inventing solutions no one had imagined before. One alien admiral who studied them admitted, "They are unpredictable. We calculate their moves as we would with any enemy, but then they do the impossible, because no one told them it could not be done." First open battles. The galaxy truly began to fear when the humans won their first open battle. Near the star of Valerian, a combined alien fleet of 20 ships cornered a human convoy of only 7. The outcome should have been certain, but the humans fought differently. They used the gravity of nearby moons to slingshot their ships at high speeds, weaving through enemy fire. They feigned retreats, then returned from blind angles. They overloaded reactors and unmanned drones, turning them into explosive decoys. By the end of the battle, the alien fleet was in chaos. More than half their ships were destroyed or disabled, while the human convoy escaped with minimal losses. The news spread faster than light. For the first time, humanity had defeated the empires in open combat. Fear spread among the ruling powers. What they had dismissed as rumors was now undeniable. Humans were not just another young species. They were something new, something the galaxy had not seen before. The council met again in panic. "We must crush them now," demanded a Zalar general. "If we wait longer, it will be too late." But others hesitated. Some feared that open war would only strengthen humanity's legend. Others quietly wondered if they should side with humans instead. For the first time in ages, the Great Council was divided. The coalition of free worlds, while the empires argued, humans acted. They sent envoys to oppressed species, offering them friendship instead of chains. They promised cooperation, trade, and respect. Slowly, small worlds began to join them. First a mining colony, then a farming world, then entire star systems tired of serving distant rulers. Thus was born the Coalition of Free Worlds, a growing alliance with humanity at its heart. It was not the largest, but it was the most determined. Every member was united by one idea: freedom was worth fighting for. The philosophy of strength in speeches broadcast across coalition space. Human leaders repeated their philosophy. "We are not the strongest. We are not the oldest. But we are the ones who refuse to stop. We fall, we rise, and we move forward. Together no empire can break us." Those words carried farther than any weapon. They gave courage to billions who had lived too long under fear. The Council's realization. The Elder Powers finally realized the danger too late. What had begun as a small species on a distant world had now become a symbol across the stars. Humanity was no longer alone. They had allies, fleets, and growing influence. Worse, they had something the ancient empires had lost long ago: belief. One elder statesman admitted in private, "We built our empires on fear. The humans build theirs on hope, and hope spreads faster than fire." Closing scene of Part 3 on Heron 3, the colony that had endured the impossible siege. A new monument was built, not of stone or metal, but of simple words carved into the walls of their main hall. "We do not break. We do not bow. We endure." As alien travelers passed through, they read those words and carried them across the stars. The galaxy was changing. The unstoppable force was no longer hidden. It was awake, it was rising, and it had a name: humanity. The galaxy was restless. Whispers of human victories traveled faster than light, spreading from station to station, planet to planet. In marketplaces, miners, farmers, and traders repeated the same stories: of Heron 3 standing against siege, of the Valerian battle where humans turned certain defeat into victory, of a species that refused to break. The Galactic Council could no longer deny the truth. Humanity was not only surviving, it was winning. And worse, they were inspiring others to rise with them. The empires, proud and ancient, faced a question they had not asked in thousands of years: what if we lose? The great alliance of fear and desperation. The empires agreed to something unthinkable. Rivals who had fought each other for centuries signed a pact to fight together against humanity. The insectoid Zalar, the scaled Dravari, the cold-minded Cenari, and half a dozen others gathered their fleets into a single armada. It was the largest military force assembled in living memory. Thousands of ships, weapons capable of cracking moons, and soldiers bred for war. They called it the Unity Armada, though it was unity born from fear. One council leader declared, "The humans believe they can rise against the order of the galaxy. We will remind them of their place. We will end this rebellion before it spreads." But while the empires prepared to unleash their strength, humanity was already thinking differently. The strategy of division on Earth. In hidden chambers beneath the great mountains, human leaders met with their allies of the Coalition of Free Worlds. Holograms of alien and human faces filled the room. General Arya Holt stood at the center, her voice steady. "They think strength is in numbers. They think the largest fleet will win. But we know their weakness. Unity is not their nature. They fight beside each other not from trust, but from fear. That is a chain we can break." Her plan was bold. Humanity would not meet the Armada in one grand battle. Instead, they would stretch it thin, break its supply lines, isolate its pieces, and strike where the enemy least expected. "Do not fight the whole beast," Holt said. "Cut it apart, one limb at a time." War in the shadows. The war began in the empty stretches of space. Human raiders struck convoys carrying food and fuel for the Armada. Small fleets lured enemy ships into nebulae and asteroid fields where navigation failed and traps were waiting. At first, the empires mocked these tactics. "Cowards!" the Zalar generals spat. "They run from battle like frightened children." But as weeks passed, the laughter died. The Unity Armada, built to fight one great clash, found itself bleeding from 1,000 small wounds. Supplies dwindled. Crews grew restless. Commanders argued about strategy. The humans never gave them the battle they wanted. Instead, they gave them chaos, the rising of the oppressed. While the Armada struggled, another storm spread across the galaxy. Inspired by human defiance, colonies long oppressed by the empires began to rebel. On a Cenari mining world, workers refused to send shipments to their rulers. On a Dravari farming planet, peasants rose with stolen weapons, declaring loyalty to the coalition. Even within the Empire's own fleets, whispers of doubt spread. Many soldiers began to ask, "Why do we fight the humans? They do not enslave. They do not ignore. They help." The more the empires tried to crush rebellion, the more it spread. The harder they pressed, the faster their control cracked. The turning of loyalties, one of the greatest shocks, came when an entire alien fleet switched sides. Admiral Sarath of the Dravari, disgusted by the arrogance of his rulers, brought 20 warships to join the coalition. His message was short but powerful. "I would rather stand with humans, who respect their allies, than serve masters who see us only as tools." The news shook the galaxy. If admirals could betray their empires, who else would follow? The battles that broke the Armada desperate, the Unity Armada launched a direct strike at the human heart worlds. Their target was Mars, one of humanity's oldest colonies filled with shipyards and factories. But humanity had prepared. Instead of defending Mars directly, they led the enemy into a carefully laid trap. Using gravity wells from nearby planets and hidden fleets stationed in silence, the humans fragmented the Armada into smaller groups. Cut off from each other, the alien fleets were ambushed again and again. One battle near the moons of Caria became legendary. Human ships used the moon's shattered rings as cover, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. The enemy's massive warships, too large to maneuver quickly, were torn apart piece by piece. When survivors retreated, they left behind wreckage that glittered across the system, a graveyard of once proud vessels. The Unity Armada, built to be unstoppable, was no longer whole. The fall of the Galactic Council. Back in the council chambers, chaos reigned. Representatives shouted over each other, demanding action, blaming rivals, accusing traitors. The once proud chamber that had ruled the galaxy for millennia was filled not with order, but with fear. Scholar Vera, who had once warned them about humanity, spoke again. Her voice was calm but sharp. "You ignored the truth. You thought them weak, but they were strong where you were blind. And now your empires fall, not because of their weapons, but because of your arrogance." No one answered her. The chamber was already breaking apart. Some members fled, some argued for surrender, and others pretended they could still control events. But it was too late. The council was finished. The world of choices, as the old order collapsed, more and more worlds joined the coalition. Some did so for hope, others for survival. For the first time in thousands of years, the galaxy had a choice: serve crumbling empires, or walk a new path with humanity. On the liberated world of Haran III, once under siege, people cheered as human and alien flags were raised side by side. The colony that had been nearly broken now became a symbol of unity, the new banner in the great halls of Earth. Leaders of many races gathered. They spoke different languages, came from different worlds, but shared one vision: a galaxy not ruled by fear, but by cooperation. They named it the Galactic Cooperative, built on equal voice and shared strength. Humanity did not claim a throne. Instead, they offered a seat at the table to every world willing to stand beside them. For many, this was the true reason humanity had become unstoppable. Not because they crushed others, but because they lifted them. Closing scene of Part 4 on a lonely space station. A Zalar officer stared at the stars. His empire had fallen, his council dissolved, his fleet shattered. He whispered to himself, "They said humans were harmless. They said they would stumble. But it was not their weapons that destroyed us. It was their will." And across the galaxy, from desert worlds to icy moons, the same thought echoed. The old order has collapsed. The future belongs to humanity, and to all who follow them. The galaxy had changed forever. Once the stars were ruled by fear. and the ancient empires believed themselves unshakable. Now silence filled their empty chambers. Their fleets were shattered, their councils dissolved, and their citizens were free or choosing freedom. At the center of this transformation was humanity. But humans did not celebrate conquest. They celebrated survival, resilience, and cooperation. The lesson they carried across the galaxy was simple. Strength is not only in power but in unity and perseverance. The Galactic Cooperative on Earth, leaders from dozens of worlds gathered. Humans, Zaylor, Dravari, Sinari, and countless others sat together in the Great Hall of Unity. The building itself was a marvel, a structure that could withstand storms, quakes, and cosmic radiation, symbolic of the durability of this new alliance. Arya Holt, now a general of the cooperative forces, addressed the assembly. "We have fought not for dominance but for choice. Every world here has the right to stand, to speak, and to thrive. Humanity does not claim the stars for itself. We claim them for all who seek freedom." For the first time in millennia, representatives from all civilizations nodded together. The galaxy was no longer ruled by a single voice but by many. A new era of exploration. While the old empires crumbled, humanity did what it had always done. They looked outward. Ships were built not only for war but for discovery. Colonies spread to uncharted systems. Scientists explored phenomena that had baffled the ancients. Engineers experimented with technologies that blended human creativity and alien knowledge. In one sector, a human team discovered a planet where storms raged constantly, yet minerals lay exposed on its surface. Within weeks, they built a settlement that harvested the resources while protecting the environment. Other species watched in awe, seeing humans turn impossible worlds into thriving communities. The galaxy was learning a new truth. Humans adapted not only to survive but to flourish wherever others would fail. Teaching by example, education became a central pillar of the new cooperative. Humans believed in sharing knowledge, not hoarding it. Alien children studied human history alongside their own, learning about resilience, cooperation, and curiosity. In one classroom on a liberated moon, a young Dravari girl asked her teacher, "Why do humans never give up?" The teacher smiled. "Because giving up is not in their nature. They face storms, hunger, and war, and yet they find a way to rise. And the more impossible the challenge, the stronger they become." Stories of human perseverance became legends across planets, not just as tales of battles, but as examples of determination, hope, and unity. Maintaining balance. Even as humanity rose, they remembered the lessons of history. They had seen empires fall when rulers became arrogant. They refused to repeat the mistakes of the past. Governors of the cooperative worlds made decisions collectively. Policies were transparent. Trade was fair. Conflicts were resolved through discussion, not threats. Humans became known not for domination but for fairness and guidance. In one council session, a representative from a distant system expressed doubt. Can humanity truly lead without becoming like the empires we defeated? General Holt replied, "Leadership is not control. Leadership is responsibility. We will not force others. We will support them. If we fail together. If we succeed, we rise together. Unity in diversity." The greatest change came not from weapons or technology, but from attitude. Where once species feared each other, they now learned to cooperate. Alien leaders discovered that humans valued creativity over obedience, discussion over dictatorship, and loyalty over fear. Trade flourished. New alliances formed. Communities rebuilt worlds destroyed by centuries of conflict. Once forbidden systems became laboratories for learning, art, and exploration.
Humanity's philosophy spread farther than any fleet could sail. Challenges remain. Even in this hopeful era, challenges remained.
Some worlds struggled to recover from centuries of oppression. Old rivalries simmered. Pirates and rogue fleets still threatened peace. Yet humanity approached these challenges differently. They did not send warships to intimidate. They sent diplomats, engineers, and teachers. They believed that rebuilding trust was stronger than any weapon. In time, these efforts paid off. Systems that had once been abandoned now prospered. Former enemies became allies. The galaxy, once fractured and fearful, began to understand cooperation and shared destiny. Humanity's example. Across liberated worlds, humans were celebrated not as conquerors, but as teachers of resilience. On frozen moons and desert colonies and floating cities above gas giants, alien children played with human-designed tools and learned human philosophies of endurance. In stories, songs, and records, humans were remembered as the species that rose from the edge of insignificance to reshape the galaxy, not with force, but with spirit. One Zayler historian wrote, "It was not their weapons that changed the galaxy. It was their will. It was their courage. It was their refusal to bow to impossibility." The humans are a lesson for all of time. A new dawn on Earth, Captain Elias Ward looked at the stars. Ships left the planet every day, bound for uncharted systems. Colonies thrived in worlds that had once been considered uninhabitable. Alliances grew stronger. He reflected on how far humanity had come. Once dismissed as a minor species, humans now led a galaxy-wide movement of hope. Their strength was not in domination, but in inspiration. Perhaps this is what it means to be unstoppable, he thought, not to destroy but to endure. Not to rule, but to uplift. Not to fear, but to act. And as he watched a fleet of exploration and aid vessels disappear into the stars, he knew humanity's journey had only begun. Closing scene, legacy among the stars on. A quiet moon. Alien children gathered under a glowing sky. One child, pointing to a distant fleet, asked, "Who are those people?" An elder smiled. "They are humans. They taught the galaxy that strength is not just power, but hope. That courage is more valuable than fear, that the smallest spark can light the darkest stars." Far across the galaxy, on frozen worlds and floating cities and desert colonies, the same lesson spread. Humanity's story was now part of the history of every species. The galaxy whispered a truth it had not known before. It was not weapons or numbers that shaped the future. It was humanity's unstoppable will, and somewhere on Earth humans looked up at the stars and smiled. They had not only survived, they had lit the path for countless worlds to follow. The galaxy was no longer ruled by fear. It was guided by hope, and humanity's legacy had begun.